Good morning. Get all the boys and girls up here. We got another one back there. No? Okay. Well, we're glad you're all here. Happy Sabbath. Did you guys have a good Thanksgiving? A lot of fun? Yeah. I'm going to tell you a story that happened 1910. That was a long time ago, wasn't it? 1910 was a long time ago. Anyway, it's kind of special to me because it has to talk about some of my ancestors. So when you think about your great-great-grandpas and great-great-grandmas and stuff, that seems like a long time ago. Kind of is. Anyway, I grew up in North Dakota, and it was in a little community. It was a German community. Everybody talked German. So I learned how to talk German when I was a kid. I don't talk it as much anymore. Anyway, do they make hay this way? Is that how they do hay for horses and cows? No, they didn't have tractors back then. This is kind of a modern picture. They didn't have any tractors or anything back there. They did by horses. And there's another picture. Life was kind of tough. It wasn't as easy as it is now. And here's an actual picture. That's one of my uncles up there. And that's how they put hay up. It looks kind of dangerous to be up on that, doesn't it? Yeah. I'm not sure I want to be up there. And here's another one. They were stacking the hay for the winter. North Dakota has long winters, so they need a lot of hay for their cows and their horses. Well, this little community here, there was a colporteur that came by. I know we have some colporteurs here, and that's kind of special to some of these people here. But there was a colporteur came by the name of Fred Riley. He was a young guy. He was probably in his 20s. And he came by, and he was trying to sell books. He was an Adventist. He was an Adventist Christian. And he was trying to sell books to the community. Well, this was a strong Catholic, Lutheran, Methodist, Baptist community. Very strong net, very strong tide. But he was going around from farm to farm, and the farms were far apart, so he went either by horse or by foot. And he was selling books. One of the books that he sold was Bible Readings for the Home. Has anybody heard about Bible Readings for the Home? Yeah. One of the books he sold was that. Not everybody took it. Some people thought he was kind of queer. He was just a little bit different because he talked about this Sabbath thing and all these other things, and it was just not what they were used to. So it was during the haying time, and Grandpa, great-grandpa, great-great-grandpa Worth was out there cutting hay. And Elder Riley, Fred Riley, he was heading home, and nobody was taking his tracks or anything. Nobody was wanting his tracks. And the tracks probably looked like something like, this was William Worth. He was out there cutting hay. This was great-grandpa, great-great-grandpa William Worth. He was out there cutting hay. Well, Elder Riley, colporteur Riley, he went and put some tracks. He dropped them out there in the hayfield. And nobody's going to take them. I'm going to put them out there in the hayfield. So he dropped some tracks out there in the hayfield. And one, it may have looked like this, and this was by Joseph Bates, and I'm not sure exactly what the tracks look like, but I would say it was similar to that. Or it may have looked like that. Something like that, and it told about the Sabbath. And next picture is, and so Grandpa Worth picked up those tracks, and he looked at it, and he goes, there's something about this. This was in the hayfield. This is special. I probably ought to read this. Maybe there's something I really ought to check out. And so his brother, Wilhelm Senior Worth, and there was a number of other brothers, they got some of these tracks in their hayfield too. So what a coincidence. All these tracks were in their hayfield. Well, Wilhelm Worth, he was out working in the field, and he left his track lay on the table. And back there, the women didn't know how to read. They didn't go to school. They took care of the babies. They took care of the children. They took care of the house. They cleaned. They did the gardening. They did all that stuff, milk cows. So school wasn't important for them. But the men usually as a rule, went to about third grade, but so they could read. And so she found this track, and when she came home, she was looking at it, and you know what he said to her? He said, Frau, daar weiß nichts wie zum Lesen. Daar weiß nichts wie zu lesen. And she said, Mann, ich kann so viel lesen. He told her, you can't read. How do you know what that's saying? And she said, husband, so much I can read. I know that that track is the truth. And here she didn't know how to read. Somebody helped her to read that track. So they went, and this is Frederick Riley. This is an older picture of him. When he was a young man, he is the one that put the track out there in the fields. He put all those tracks out there in the hayfield. And back then, like our early pioneers of our church, they would stay up and they would study. And they would read their Bibles all night long to see if they could find out what the truth was, what was actually truth. And they got together. They studied night after night. They pulled their Bibles out. They were going to prove that these tracks were wrong. But what did they find? They found out that these tracks were right, that the Bible actually said that there was a Sabbath. And somebody had actually bought one of the Bible readings for the home. And this is actually my grandfather's own book that he got from a colporteur. And they studied. And I wanted to show you this. This is really special to me. Does it look like a worn book? Does this look worn out? Look at that. Look at those pages. Look at those pages. And actually, some of it is missing. This is my grandfather's Bible. And they studied to find out what was truth. I'm going to see if you guys can read this. Can you read it? No, you can't? Can you read that? You can't read. You know what? Neither can I. It's all in German because there was a German community. So this here, they have long been dead. But they read their Bibles, they studied their Bibles, and they knew that the Lord had a plan for them. So that was 1910. And there was 7 families. And these families, they just didn't have 1 or 2 kids. Some of them had 12, 13, or 14 kids. There was 7 families that came out of the Baptist church. That was a lot to come out of a denomination. They almost left the Baptist church empty. And in 1910, they built this church. And when I was a little girl, who is about 4? Are you 4? Are you 4? Yeah? You're 5. Well, when I was about 4, I remember going to that church. That was the church I went to. And in the front, it was a one room, and in the front it had the rostrum, and when it was time for the children's lesson study, we would put there, and I even remember it was a royal blue velvet curtain. They pull the curtain across, we'd get our little chairs and sit in front of this side of the curtain, and we'd have our Sabbath school lesson. And the adults would be back here studying their lesson. It's different. But you know what? They outgrew that church. So in 1960, they built that church because they didn't have enough room in the little church. And now that has been 3 generations ago. So there's 3 generations that are sleeping and waiting for Jesus' return. They're all sleeping quietly, waiting for Jesus' return. 12 years ago, we had our 100th celebration for when they first found those tracks in the field. So a lot of the grandkids, which would have been their great-great-grandkids, my cousins and all this, we all came back to church, and we had a special program. That was a real special time. And out of that church, out of that little church with those 7 families, and then on the neighboring town, they also got some they also got a colporteur. Elder Rilea came, and he colported there too. If you can see that, look at that map. Right up there, right there. That's the little town in North Dakota where that little community was, and those Germans got that track. And over the years, you see all those little flags? The blue flags are the long-term missionaries that went, and the red flags are those that were shorter-term missionaries, all descendants from that little church. So isn't that pretty neat? Is it true that tracks work? It is true that tracks work. You know, we have tracks too, don't we? Everybody's seen these. Have you seen these? You know what these are? These are a little fancier than what they had back then. But you never know who is going to get a track. Maybe in some bathroom somewhere, maybe at some gas station, maybe in some hayfield. We don't know. And it might inspire them to study and to find out what's truth. So I'm going to give you each a track. And this week, you give it to somebody, or you leave it somewhere. But you give it to somebody and say, and pray for that person, whoever gets this track. Because there might be somebody looking for Jesus, just like they did back in the hayfield. Okay. So, there you go. Okay. There, you can go back to your seats. And here's one for your brother.